No big intro clip. We're live from the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis, the beautiful, spacious, palatial Indiana Convention Center. That's not what you care about. You care about hearing about DeMeco Ryans live from the NFL Scouting Combine, what he talked about, what he mentioned with the Houston Texans, and my overarching theme from DeMeco Ryans and what came out of the conversation that he had with the assembled Houston media was this is a team that he was somewhat content with at the conclusion of last season. He mentioned they were a quarter away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City and going where a Texans team has never gone before. But they clearly believe they have another level to go to. The coaching changes that they made were the first step to that, and then getting more players was the next thing. He mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles taking care of their business, winning the Super Bowl because they had the best players. He mentioned this is about the players, and what better place to find the next generation of great players than at the Scouting Combine. A couple of things we'll talk about with DeMeco Ryans. Two positions he mentioned specifically that he wants to go out there and add to, one on offense, one on defense, and it's not what you're thinking on offense or defense, more than likely. What's DeMeco Ryans' draft strategy? Is he a best player available guy? Is he a draft for need guy? That was a great question by Will Kunkel, who is sitting right next to me here at the Scouting Combine. Fox 26 Will Kunkel. This is live.
This is exciting. Hey, y'all. Big fan of the Stoots fans.
Go check out Kicking It with Kunkel. He sat down with Simone Biles. Is that right?
Yes. Gymnast. Cody, heard of her?
I've heard of her husband.
Jonathan Owen.
Yeah.
Former Packer legend.
What? He was on the Bears, but that's okay.
He's a former He played for the Packers the year before that.
He played for the Texans, too. You could have mentioned that part.
Okay.
All right, enough of Will Kunkel.
What I said was correct.
Yeah, sure. No, it's fine. It's fine. Kicking It with Kunkel.
Just going to stand here.
Fox 26. Don't do that. Well, we're just going to go to DeMeco Ryans if you're going to do that. All right, so some of the comments from DeMeco Ryans. Again, the biggest element to me from DeMeco's conversation with the local media was they need more. They need more depth. They need more playmakers. They need more starters. He talked about it. He said the players are the way that you're going to take it to the next level if you're the Houston Texans.
Free agency, want to add as many great players to our team as possible. That's what it will allow us to be a really good team. Never lose sight of that. It's not so much always about the coaches and our input and what do we do. Right? You got to have some dudes. You got to have playmakers who can go make plays, put you in position to be successful. Players are the guys who win games. That's why the Scouting Combine is very important to me. First look at a lot of the college athletes that are coming out and who can impact our team. Met with a few guys last night, excited to continue to meet with the guys, just to get a feel for their personality and how they fit our culture in Houston. So it's been a great process, a lot of good prospects. I feel like it'll be a deep draft this year, so excited to see what's next for us and who we can add to our team.
Now, notice he mentioned there at the beginning, free agency or the NFL draft, you got to have dudes. And the Texans, they have a few dudes. Like, they have a really solid core, and they have dudes at super important positions. 2 edge rushers that most teams don't even have one, let alone 2, to the level that Willie Anderson and Danielle Hunter are on this team. Defensively, most teams don't have one cornerback that's as good as Kamari Lassiter, much less 2 cornerbacks, with one of them being an all-pro cornerback like Derek Stingley, a young rookie at safety like Kalen Bullock, and a solid linebacking group. Over on offense, big-time wide receiver, big-time running back, and we hope bouncing back from 2024, big-time quarterback. It's like they've got some dudes, but they need more. And that was evidence by the fact that towards the end of the season, you watch the offense kind of peter out. Like, they didn't have the juice on offense. They thought they did when they came into the season, the way that they built it, and adding Stephon Diggs and hoping for the second season to Tank Dell and more continued success from Nico Collins and adding Joe Mixon. Like, they thought they had it, but then injuries robbed them. The depth wasn't as deep as we thought it was going to be at wide receiver, and they sort of ran out of juice offensively. On top of that, they couldn't protect the quarterback. They couldn't keep C.J. Stroud clean. as DeMeco Ryans mentioned today, C.J. Stroud's a very good quarterback when you give him time. When he has the ability to go out there and be protected and throw the football, he's a very good quarterback. But even then, even when he is protected, you've still got to add more. And so when he made the comment about the wide receivers, he talked first about Stephon Diggs and then more about the position. It's a position of emphasis for this Houston Texans team to go out there and find more guys at wide receiver.
Having Steph on our team, we'll see how things work out with him. Steph, he brought, you talk about energy, you talk about leadership, he brought a lot to our team. So it hurt us down the stretch not having Steph, not having Tank. You need those playmakers, especially at the wide receiver position. Right? It just enhances your ability to be able to move the football down the field, to score points. So that is an area of emphasis for us, is looking at the wide receiver.
Area of emphasis, got to get more at the wide receiver position. And if I was just reading between the lines, if I was going a little bit deeper on just how he talked about Stephon Diggs, it didn't seem like that was a major priority as far as free agency to bring that player back. And then Tank Dell's situation, it's obviously very complicated for 2025. It's very complicated for this upcoming season. Even if Tank Dell plays football, he's not helping you in the early part of the season. So one wide receiver that you can really count on, a handful of guys on the roster, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, some other future reserve contract guys that they have. But you've got to go out there and you got to find wide receivers. You could use probably a veteran. You could use a rookie to kind of stabilize things over the course of a couple of seasons with Nico Collins as he's on that contract extension. But it's going to be an emphasis for the Houston Texans, not only in free agency, but certainly in the draft, to go out there and find wide receivers. The head coach said as much. Now, when you start to think about the defense, DeMeco Ryans is going to get a little bit extra over on defense. You saw the way they operated last offseason. They spent $50 million basically over 2 years on Danielle Hunter. They went out there and got Danico Autry, $10 million a year. Azeez Al-Shire, $10 million a year, multi-year contract. They drafted defense with 2 of their first 3 selections in the NFL draft. Like, DeMeco Ryans is going to get his on defense, and he went even further as to say, hey, we are going to add to the defensive line because what I saw wasn't what I wanted to see over the course of the season from the defensive line. Here was the head coach from earlier today.
Add more defensive linemen. We'll see what that is, free agency or draft. We'll look, see how it all falls. I don't have one set answer of how we're going to fill those needs right now. It can come in a variety of different ways. And so looking to improve the D-line for sure as we go back and, self-scout, look at our season. I think we can definitely improve in the interior D-lineman department. We can get better there.
The interior D-lineman department, we can get better there. And he didn't like, or I guess maybe didn't love what he saw from the defensive line from a self-scout perspective, which was a little surprising to me. I thought the defensive line was probably one of the best units on the entire team. Now, when you think about it from a defensive end standpoint, a whole lot more than what they got out of the defensive tackles. They had moments at defensive tackle. Tim Settle had a really nice, stretch there after he got started. Mario Edwards had a couple of moments, but obviously he missed time with suspension. Foley Fatukasi was hurt a bunch throughout the course of the season. They added Tommy Togiai late in the season. He made a play here or there, but there's no solidification there at the defensive tackle spot. They've got 2 guys under contract that were on the roster last year in Settle and Togiai. It's a super deep defensive tackle draft. The defensive linemen talk tomorrow. I'm super excited to talk to the defensive big uglies to get the week started. The offensive big uglies are at the end, and I say it in an affectionate way. There's a ton of defensive tackles this year. There's probably going to be a worthwhile defensive tackle draft pick every time the Texans are on the clock. That's how deep this defensive tackle draft is. Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network, he mentioned it. He said, hey, last year, about 12 starters on the defensive line, almost double that number this year is what he thinks could be defensive tackle starters in this upcoming draft. So it's a big guy draft. And when DeMeco Ryans was asked about certain positions, He started with defensive linemen, then he said offensive linemen, and of course he went to his typical, hey, I love the trenches, okay, and that's where we got to build this team, something Nick Caley mentioned in his introductory press conference as well, in the trenches, inside out with this offensive line. So it's a big guy draft. There's going to be options for the Houston Texans basically every time they're on the clock to help the trenches, offensively, defensively. The thing about DeMeco Ryans is you can't be afraid to reinforce a strength when it comes to the defensive line. Like, they've got an excellent defensive end situation. But I don't know that you can always just say, hey, no matter what, we're going to take the best player available, because at some point, the usefulness in 2025 is super important to you. You think long-term with a draft pick, obviously, but if you draft an edge rusher, and I know they do the hockey changes 4 in, 4 out, that edge rusher drafted by the Texans is not getting as many opportunities as an edge rusher, say, drafted by the Jets or the Denver Broncos or one of these other teams that needs an edge rusher. So that's where it gets a little precarious when the coach says 2 positions, hey, defensive line and wide receiver, we're going to focus on it. It's like, hey, you also kind of need both of those. You need defensive tackles. You don't have starters on the roster right now. You need wide receivers, but you also need to focus on those positions probably every year. You can't ever have too many edge rushers, can't ever have too many wide receivers. It's just, hey, how important could one of those maybe wide receivers be in a situation versus one of those defensive ends? And that kind of leads me all the way to DeMeco Ryans' approach to the NFL draft. Is he a best player available guy, or is he we might need this a little bit more? The head coach explains.
You just go and pick a guy just because you have a need, right? Or you don't reach for a guy just because you have a need. You look at the draft board and see where you have guys graded, how you have guys slotted, and you never pass up a really great player.
Never pass up a really great player, says DeMeco Ryans. Like, if there's a really great defensive tackle sitting around, hanging around at 25, it wouldn't be my favorite thing, but go for it. Especially if DeMeco Ryans and this staff trusts a guy at defensive tackle to be the 25th overall pick, come in, start right away, help out that defensive line, continue to build into a strength. I certainly understand that element of it from DeMeco Ryans. I get why they would want to add that element. And then it's like, okay, what wide receivers available? Like, he mentions wide receivers, he mentions defensive line. That's kind of where I'm thinking that first-round pick is headed. And plus, that's also kind of an emphasis for free agency as well. You could fill things out in free agency that helps with needs, maybe doesn't solve things, but helps with needs. And I think that's another thing DeMeco Ryans talked about that jumped out to me is when you think about a player, you think beyond just, hey, is he a starter? What can he do? You're thinking a little bit long-term and down the roster as well.
Current roster, and you see where you stack up, like who are your starters, like where's your depth, how are their backups at those positions. I mean, as I mentioned, you're always trying to improve the backup positions, right? And who can push the starters and who can, right? Also, can you become a starter? That's what I look at for our backup guys. But when we go into free agency, of course, you want to look to fill any immediate needs when it comes to the starters or role players. You look to fill those needs, but it'll be a lot of guys that come available. They're free agents that you didn't think would become free agents. So you always just keep the ball rolling, always stay flexible and ready to add good players whenever they come available.
That's another element too. Like, just because you make an investment in free agency, he says stay flexible, try to add good players. Just because you add somebody in free agency doesn't mean you couldn't draft that same position. You had a veteran wide receiver that maybe this year could be a number 2 guy for you. Let's say Cooper Kupp. Okay, well, draft Emeka Egbuka with the 25th overall pick, and he's your number 2 down the road after Cooper Kupp kind of declines a little bit or he moves on. Like, you can stay flexible and continue to just add players, but the depth conversation and getting greedy about talent, I watch that Philadelphia Super Bowl, and I just feel like DeMeco Ryans is just sitting there, and he's like, man, they got edge rusher after edge rusher and defensive tackle after defensive tackle and tons of linebackers and tons of – I want that for my team. Of course, Philadelphia already has one of the best offensive lines in football, and they're deep at wide receiver. And They got a really good tight end and a really good running back and some backups behind him. So like, there's some other things. So it's 2 off seasons in a row where depth has been a focus, and the last game of the season, depth's been an issue. Against the Ravens 2 years ago, or 2 seasons ago, to finish up the year, DeAndre Houston Carson's playing safety. Okay, well, they addressed that in the upcoming year. They added some safety talent to the equation with Caley Bullock, and then they get to the Kansas City game, and wide receiver depth's an issue. Okay, well, then I feel like they're going to add wide receiver depth as well. So those are the comments from DeMeco Ryans. I wanted to get those. We'll have a lot more on SNL live, 4 o'clock today on the SNL channel. We'll have a lot more from SNL from DeMeco Ryans, conversations, comments from what he had to say here at the NFL Scouting Combine. Lots of conversations from DeMeco Ryans about the coaching staff and why or why not there wasn't so much change. We'll get Landry Locker's thoughts on some of the things that DeMeco has said as well, so don't miss out on the locker room. And the locker room, Cody Stoots collaboration, that is SNL at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, YouTube, you'll find it right here. Let's get to some of your questions, your comments, your joys, your concerns. We'll go through some of these comments that you've had here as we've been live here at the the Indiana Convention Center in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine. I'll spit it out here in a second. Chewy says, the stash gives me coach vibes. How's it going, Coach Stoots? Yeah, I trimmed the mustache up a little bit. I shortened it up here on the sides, so it looks a little bit different. BG likes the sign. My guy Tim is the best when it comes to making logos. He made the Houston football logo, and he updated it. He's been generous enough to share a lot of those updates and things. So the sign is beautiful. We got more signs coming this week. This is only the first of many signs that you're going to see this week. So we're pretty proud of those. SNL, the locker room. Okay, it's going to be a lot to see throughout the course of this week here in Indianapolis. Brandon says, shouldn't they be focusing on the run blocking and run game? So they actually want to take the pressure off of Stroud. Well, run blocking, pass blocking is important as well. And the conversation about the offensive line is always, of course, a constant one. That'll come up a little bit more in SNL a little bit later on. Jalen Johnson says, we do need to get a younger defensive tackle in the draft. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, Togi I's done at the end of next year. So is Tim Settle. If you had a free agent, that's a 1-2 year commitment. So if you get a defensive tackle in the first round, that's 5 years. If you get a defensive tackle in the outside the first round, that's at least 4 years. Like you get a cost-controlled asset at that position. And when you start to think about the various positions throughout the roster, you're about to lose a cost-controlled asset at cornerback. Derek Stingley's about to get paid. But you've got Kamari Lassiter, cost-controlled asset. Caley Bullock, cost-controlled asset. Will Anderson is currently a cost-controlled asset, probably one of the best production for cost players in the entire NFL. It's not a quarterback. You're going to eventually lose that. Linebacker, To'o, cost-controlled asset. If you can add more of those, like the roster churns, it's easy to see how the roster churns, and it makes sense. Old guys get old. They age out. You move on from them. Young guys are ready to not only take their spot, but take the financial investment in them, and they could do that at defensive tackle. Brandon says, I still think DeMeco might tell Caserio and Caley if he can get his defensive tackle in round 1, then offense can have the next 4 picks after. Yeah, look, they got 6 picks as we talk right now in the first round of the NFL, or the 6 picks in the first round. That'd be glorious. They have 6 picks in the 2025 NFL draft. 25th overall is currently their first pick. Could they do something similar to the Minnesota trade last year, add some day 2 capital stretched over maybe a couple of years? Certainly, they could do that. What you'd really like to see, maybe if you're in the trade back camp, which I feel like myself, Landry Locker definitely are, you'd like to see a quarterback of note fall to 25 and have one of these teams that didn't invest in a quarterback in the top part of the first round be there in the top part of the second round, jump up, and then you can really kind of, especially if they're coming up for a quarterback, they pay a little bit extra, okay, pay a little bit more. So Brandon thinks defensive tackle. Jalen's going defensive tackle as well. Wouldn't be shocked if they go DT at 25. How deep is it, Stoots? This defensive tackle draft is so deep. You could bury all of your transgressions and still have room to bury your enemies. I don't know. I was trying to think of something deep, and then I couldn't think of like a famous deep thing. The Mariana Trench, is that deep? Is it Mariana Trench deep? Like the deepest part of the ocean where like, there's so much pressure that like submarines explode? Mariana Trench deep? Is that how deep the defensive tackle draft is? I will get an appropriate deep measurement for how deep the defensive tackle draft is this week. Brandon says Texas didn't have a top 50 DT in run stopping last year. And DeMeco made a comment at the podium today as well. Like, they like guys to be multiple at defensive tackle and defensive line, but they also change enough that they can have skill-specific guys. So when I think about a player like Maryland defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, we'll talk about him over the next couple of days, especially with defensive linemen talking tomorrow. When I think about Jordan Phillips and I think about him, I think about, like, that's a run stuffer. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush element to you. Okay, well, if you can trust him on first and second downs, you swap him out, you put in a sort of a pass rush specialist, maybe like a Tim Settle, on third down. Like, you can make do with that, especially if Jordan Phillips is a, late day 2, early day 3 investment. Like, you don't have to have like stars at every position, especially at defensive line where they do those changes and they match up. WBF Gonzo text says, if we don't get wide receiver 25, then I feel like DeMeco and Nick knows what they are going to do for a wide receiver, hopefully not Mechie or Hutch. Yet they may need to do something initially with the free agency class and get a portion of the wide receiver room settled, and then sort of figure out what the board looks like from a draft standpoint from wide receiver. I mean, the wait from 25 to when they pick in the second round, that's prime wide receiver territory. You think about guys that went last year in that area, like Ladd McConkey went there. Polk, the kid from Washington that went to the Patriots, went there. Like, that's prime wide receiver territory in the wait from the first pick to the second pick. So they better have a plan if they don't go wide receiver early. Chewy says currently as the roster sits, they are 2-3. Let's hope that about John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. Yeah, you've got to push them down the depth chart, and you'd even need to bring people into the equation that push them for their spot and make it tough for those guys to make the roster. That's what I would say. Miles and Cognac, good to see you. Esco, good to see you. He says, just got in, but any linebacker catch your eye? Definitely need more due to injuries. Linebackers will talk tomorrow, talk a little bit more about that. It's been sort of an underreported on position just because linebacker importance has lowered in the NFL over the years. But I will be intrigued to talk a little bit more about the draft experts here and talk with people about the linebackers. Nothing yet that I can say about the linebackers. You're going to hit us with the Combine Eats segment. Come on, Food Review Friday. I ain't going to miss Food Review Friday. I'm on the road live in Indianapolis, but I will not miss Food Review Friday. I will review something in Indianapolis for you for Food Review Friday. Corey wants Emeka Egbuka, perfect fit in our room behind Collins. And when you think about the player profile, like the dude who he is, the person, Egbuka checks every single box for the Houston Texans. When they talk about like good people, win with good people, stand-up human beings, Egbuka checks all those boxes. I mean, that's exactly the type of personality profile that the Texans would go after. In addition to the player's really good. He's the all-time leading receiver in Ohio State football history. 20 guys have scored more touchdowns than him at Ohio State. Most of them have been running backs. Like, Egbuka's a really good player that just so happens to seemingly be an incredible human being. So how DeMeco Ryans connects with those players, and actually I think it's worth talking about, and I'll pull the clip up. The interviews for DeMeco Ryans is the biggest thing for him. Like, that's what he says he benefits from the most, as Will Kunkel tries to photobomb me. Oh, look, I got the rabbit ears. No one's ever seen that before. DeMeco Ryans. Yeah. Everybody else called. They want their version of that joke back too, Will. DeMeco Ryans, the sit-down interviews, learning about the guy and the player in addition to the film. But the sit-downs, face-to-faces with the guys, that's what's important to him at the Combine.
Down across face-to-face with the guy and just feeling their energy, right? Seeing those guys articulate like what we're asked, what have they been asked to do in their particular scheme. Getting to know guys, their background, their upbringing. You get to know a lot about guys, right? You get the insight. Sometimes I instantly can feel that connection with guys, and sometimes you have to do a little bit more digging on guys. Of course, you have a mix of guys. We had guys who are very quiet. You try to have to pry a little bit more information out of guys. And yeah, some guys who sit down and they just start rattling off information, and they're very talkative guys. You feel their upbeat energy and personality. So for me, I get a really good gauge of the personality, first and foremost. The film and the working out, I think all those things being on video, now you can go back and you can watch those anywhere at any given time. So there is a better benefit to me of now with the Combine being televised. We get all the drills, film. You can watch those over and over.
DeMeco Ryans talking about the connection, like sometimes just knowing it. That was Will Anderson. Like it feels like when they met Will Anderson, it just clicked for DeMeco Ryans. It clicked for Will Anderson, and they really kind of fell in love with Will Anderson, the guy. In addition to, they already knew he was the best pass rusher in that draft. It's like they fell in love with Will Anderson, the guy, and then they already knew the edge rusher was really good. And then I feel like they got that impression from C.J. Stroud, maybe not in the Combine interview, but ultimately when they brought Stroud in, they've mentioned that conversation, or they mentioned in conversations that moment when he was in the building so many times, how they connected with the player in that situation and how they connected in a personal level outside of the football, how much they liked some of those guys. And that's an important element too. Like that could be the tiebreaker. If this player is the same grade as this player, who did we like more? What dude did we like more? Who's a better human being? Who fits our culture more? Like that could be a tiebreaker when it's all said and done if the two guys are the same level, same type of player. Paul says, get a true game changer at wideout to pair with Nico. It's tough to say like, hey, there's a game changer out there at wide receiver. There really isn't. Like when you think about free agents, there's not a game changer at wide receiver. I can't tell you right now that there's a wide receiver going to be available to them that's a game changer. So, I mean, if Tet McMillan from Arizona fell to them, they'd have the freakiest 1-2 wide receiver crew in the entire league from an athleticism standpoint. They'd be all arms and legs. Tet McMillan's like a little bit shorter Nico Collins. Like that's what he is. And so if they had two Nico Collinses, that'd be fun, but they're not going to get Tet McMillan. He probably should go 5 to the Jaguars, but I don't know that they're going to do that. Jeffrey says you could have gone with the crush your enemies quote from Cody and the Barbarian in reference to the depth of defensive tackle in this year's draft. That would have worked too. What I came up with, not great. We will have an appropriate depth measurement before the Combine is over. Miles on that calling you. I think interior offensive line is a top priority. I go wide receiver, but the protection was so bad. Interior offensive line is a must. If not in the first round, then definitely in the second round. Conversation about the offensive line to pop up on SNL today. Some of what DeMeco Ryans had to say. I do feel like previous things that they've said and really the kind of what they've intimated a little bit is the scheme's going to help some of these guys. They definitely aren't going to ignore adding to the room, though. Is there an O-lineman selection at 25 that would be worthy? I mean, I just talked about Will Anderson. Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, the Alabama people call him the Will Anderson of offense. So if the Texans meet with him and talk with him, they're going to love him. So 25, yeah, they could draft him. He'd be plug and play right away. Guard from Alabama, Tyler Booker. I like Gray Zabel, the North Dakota State University interior offensive lineman. Now, he played tackle at North Dakota State, but he's going to bump inside. He was awesome at the Senior Bowl. He kicked everybody's ass at the Senior Bowl. He's totally out of profile for what the Texans usually do. He's a small school guy. They primarily have drafted from the Power 4, Power 5 schools. The only group of 5 guy that Caserio's drafted was Tank Dell when he was at UH. If I have that correct off the top of my head. Everybody else had finished at a big-time school. So Zabel would be a break from tradition. But if they broke from tradition for that guy, that would tell you all you need to know about what they thought about that guy. So there should be some offensive linemen available at 25. Texan for Life asks, think there's any chance they draft Ibuka or Golden at 25? Both should be in play. Both should be in play. And really, to me, nothing that they do in free agency can knock them out of having those guys in play at 25. Yeah, free agency will provide a lot of clarity. Corey's right about this. Jonah just asked about Gray Zabel, North Dakota State interior offensive lineman. That's my main question for him Saturday when the offensive lineman talk is, did you have a formal meeting with the Houston Texans? Because he would be breaking from Caserio's tradition and how he's operated. David says, congratulations on the sick logo. Thank you. The Houston football logo is incredible. I've even got like the what are they called? The things that you scan, QR codes here on the bottom. So when people walk by, they're like, what is that? I'm like, oh, this is the website. This is Houston football. And this is the wonderful YouTube, which is where I'm live now. By the way, we'll have Houston football coverage for you tonight. I mentioned SNL. We'll have SNL for you as well. There will be a lot of stuff coming your way. The combine is one of my favorite things. I just want to just info dump everything that I can for Texans fans when it comes to the combine. So, Veracity Productions, chance Houston to take O-line the first 3 rounds. Honestly, Houston active in free agency for depth at O-line and replace starter at right guard. I prefer a right guard via free agency. We've gone over some of the right guards here on the channel. Did the video earlier today on Brandon Sheriff, which is a worthwhile probably investment. Kevin Zeitler, we've talked about him over the weekend. So there's a lot. There's a lot of options that are better than Shaq Mason in free agency. Various levels of investment. Trey Smith from Kansas City be super expensive. Halston Keller, Cody, any chance of adding a powerhouse with adding a tempting Alvin Kamara? Any chance of a powerhouse with adding a tempting Alvin Kamara? I don't think Kamara's moving. They gave him another contract adjustment extension or whatever. So I don't think they're inclined to move him. So I would say I'd put that one out of the brain for a little while. Probably not on Kamara. Okay. Quick little sidebar here. I want to talk about my friends at PrizePicks. This week is the last week for the PrizePicks bonus. Okay, you see it in the description down below. You play your first 5, you get $50. Thanks to my friends at PrizePicks. When you sign up with my code down below, Stoots, STOOTS. If you use the link in the description down below, it should autofill that code for you. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on the computer. Super simple to get into PrizePicks. You go in, you put a couple bucks in, you play your first 5, they're going to send you $50 in bonus bucks right away. Free $50 to play at PrizePicks. You're going to have a blast. It's so much fun. It's so easy. It's just predicting more or less on given stats. And they've already got NFL season predictions up for you to go through. You got quarterbacks and a punter as well. CJ Stroud, more or less than 3,800 passing yards next year. You can put that in. But if you like MMA, they got MMA for you. They got NBA. They got hockey, soccer fans, and something else that's going to pop up here. PrizePicks is the only people that do it. They're going to put combine opportunities up for you on PrizePicks. Be on the lookout for that at PrizePicks when you get signed up, because it is awesome when they put the combine stuff up. And I will have plenty of combine things to weigh in on. We'll put some PrizePicks entries together. But this week is the last week to play your first 5 and get $50 thanks to my friends at PrizePicks. When you support them, you support the channel, you support me, and I greatly appreciate it. Now back to your questions. Brandon says, we have a breakdown on which field combine workouts we should look out for: wide receiver 40, DT bench, O-line mobility. So here's what I would tell you for defensive linemen. And I think it kind of breaks down. The 40 doesn't matter for anybody. It doesn't matter. They drafted Kamari Lassiter last year. Kamari Lassiter was 40 slow. He's football fast. Okay? So the 40 doesn't matter. Defensive ends and even some of the defensive tackles, You want broad jumps and you want verticals. You want them to show explosions. So when the defensive tackles get on the field, I believe on Thursday, and the defensive ends get on the field on Thursday, you want explosion, verticals, and broad jumps from those guys. From wide receivers, corners, running backs, any of the field drills where they're changing directions, especially with the wide receivers working with unfamiliar quarterbacks, if they can go through like the wide receiver gauntlet, that was a big thing for Puka Nacua a couple of years ago. He was like super fast in the wide receiver gauntlet. That was a Keon Coleman thing last year for the Buffalo Bills. His gauntlet speed was really fast, even though his 40 time wasn't super impressive. So he looked fluid in the gauntlet, and he changed directions. He moved well. He caught the football. Like those are kind of workouts that you add to. But I would tell you, all the workouts do is put a guy on your radar to go back and watch him play actual football. Like that, if somebody has a big workout, all it will do is just kind of change how much you want to watch them play real football. That's probably my biggest thing for you. So change of direction. The mirroring drill for offensive linemen is always a good one. So the offensive linemen have to stay in front of the other offensive linemen. That's always a good one to watch. Jacob asked, would you consider trading up for Ibuka? I would say no, just because they've got 6 draft picks. You don't really want to dip into the future too much. And what's it cost you to trade up? You go from 25 to 20. Like, does that eliminate your ability to pick in the 3rd round? Does that eliminate your ability to pick in the 4th round? You're already down a 5th rounder. You've got a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 6, and a 7. And, or you don't have a, yeah, that's what I think it is. I think you're missing one selection because you sent it for the dang old Kendrick Green. Yeah, so you sent it to you don't have a 5th. You have Buffalo's 5th. You don't have a 6th. That's what it is. I'll get it straight. Of course, the numbers change on the back end because then comp picks come out. But 6 draft picks, it's tough to trade unless you're dipping into the future. Like, would you trade next year's 3rd and the 25th to go to 20? Yeah, maybe. But what are you giving away to get that, to achieve that? Eric asks, hey, Codes, which round do you think the Texans will get the most value when they go running back? I mean, value, the draft folks talk about it. I heard this on NFL Stock Exchange, and Daniel Jeremiah's talked about this. You'll have guys go in the 4th this year that would have been 2nd-day guys last year. That's how deep this running back situation. Defensive tackle and running back, super deep, super deep. We will have an appropriate depth measurement system for that. Maybe Will Kunkel can help us. He's smart. He went to a smart guy school. Will, when you're measuring depth, like what is something that is deep? What is something that is deep? I'm being as careful as I can. I want you to also be careful. I use the Mariana Trench, but I feel like that's too deep.
Come on, man.
That's like the deepest.
Camera level.
Oh, because you're not on camera enough.
What about
just
a black hole?
Did you? Well, that you can't measure depth because nothing can measure.
So deep that
you can't measure. Did you go put makeup on? Are you gonna be on TV?
It's funny to you, nice little.
So like an oil well is pretty deep, right?
It is deep.
You know what? That's where we're gonna go. We're gonna go with an oil well.
All right.
What are
you talking about?
I was trying to explain how deep a position group was, and I didn't do a good job. So we're trying to get an accurate depth measurement system.
Okay, so what's shallow? The kiddie pool?
Your feelings? All right, see you, Will. Thanks. Thanks for nothing, actually, because you have not appropriately measured depth with us.
You insulted me.
Check out Will Kunkel's work at Fox 26, and, of course, Kicking It with Kunkel. Okay. OO says, Cody, do you think there'll be a good O-line? And it will be there at around 3 is what he asks, ultimately. Yes, Daniel Jeremiah kind of brushed off the necessity to go O-line early. It's like if you got a veteran right guard, you could then get a young guy to maybe grow into the position, or you can hope to grow into the position, or have a depth guy that you like. Have a depth guy that you like, who only plays if somebody gets hurt. Like Titus Howard's the left guard to start the season, and then he gets hurt. Like, okay, now we'll go to the depth guy, the young guy that we like. But you plan for him maybe in 2026, 2027, stuff like that. Panda wants to go get a slot wide receiver. That's another thing, is versatility from some of these wide receivers is really important. You can go inside, you can go outside. A lot of the veterans can go inside and outside. So let Nick Caley kind of play with it when he finally gets those guys. Rocky likes Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, DJ Giddens from Kansas State at running back. Jaden Higgins, a wide receiver. Jaden Higgins is going to if he runs fast, he's going to fly up people's draft boards, even though I just told you the 40 doesn't matter, but some teams do fall in love. I feel like it doesn't matter a lot for the Texans. Paul wants CJ Stroud to get some protection and get him some weapons. Yeah, that to me is the name of the offseason. Protect Stroud, get him a few more weapons, round out the defense as well. Let's see here. Mark Marker says DK Metcalf's the game changer at wide receiver. Yeah, but you got to trade for DK Metcalf. He's got to be available. The Seahawks are around here somewhere. I could ask them. Not really anybody over at their table. Hey, is DK available? You guys want to trade DK Metcalf? Will fourth round pick do it? No? Okay. I don't think DK Metcalf's available. And if he is, he's expensive because he's probably the best wide receiver that's available. I'm going to try to catch up here. Jerome kicks. We need speed. Igbuka has to run fast. I don't care about the nice guy stuff. Okay. It's fair. I mean, he's not going to be a burner when you watch the game. Like, he's not going to just blow past guys. Like, Nico doesn't do that either. When Nico gets the ball, he goes and finds violence. And that's kind of what Igbuka does. It's kind of Nico-esque once he gets the ball in his hands. Like,
Nico's got the long strides, though.
As Will Kunkel's saying here, like, the Nico size and the length of his strides does let him pull away from guys, as evidenced by half the Bills team chasing him in that Bills game. Igbuka's not that tall and doesn't have that type of stride length, so it's a little bit tougher to handle from that standpoint. But he's not a bad runner with the football in his hands. Like, you watch some of his Ohio State stuff, like, he does run away from guys. So let's see. Halston says, so how the Patriots had 3 running backs in past times. Do you have any faith Texans going about it like that due to the lack of wide receiver talent? I do feel like they're going to have more use throughout the depth of the running back position under Nick Caley. That does feel like something that they're going to put together. Where's Landry? You'll see him on SNL here at 4 o'clock. Don't miss out on that. I'm also looking at 2 different clocks, so I don't actually know what time it is, but I'll be there. Time zones are hard for Mr. Locker, and when I'm looking at 3 different clocks, they're hard for me too. Also get a running back, take some load off Joe Mixon. Yeah, deep running back class. Wouldn't mind adding to that. Wouldn't mind 2 running backs, to be honest with you. Rocky says, don't draft a lineman. That's freaking ridiculous. Well, that's not ridiculous. Joshua scientifically explains the black holes are for density and not depth. Okay. Tell that to Space City Kunkel. Rocky says Kenyon Green was a monster and a road grader, blah, blah, blah. Get out of here, Kunkel. Stop it. I don't know that anybody ever thought Green was a monster. Like, Kenyon Green did not feel, I don't know. I don't remember many people saying he's a monster. The thing it felt like with Kenyon Green that just totally went wrong was people believed he had a high floor, and it turns out that his floor was really low, and he ended up being bad when he was really bad. So that's the tough part about Kenyon Green. Road grader, yes, he definitely, I remember that, but I don't know anybody was calling him a monster. You think they drafted tight end late? Yes, and I'll give you the name. I'll give you the specific name. Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech. Played at Yale before he went to Georgia Tech. Played at Georgia Tech this past year. Not a super receiving guy. He punishes defensive linemen when he goes into block as a tight end, and that is absolutely something you need out of a late-round tight end. This defensive tackle class is deeper than I don't even know if I want to say that, Joshua. So we're going to keep going. Andrew Solis says, trade back, get multiple seconds, and pick up that wide receiver from TCU, Jack Besh. Now, there's another TCU wide receiver that's probably also a second rounder, his teammate, Savion Williams. Savion Williams was supposed to be at the Senior Bowl. He ended up not going. And if Savion Williams tests at the combine, he's going to be a freak. He's the rough exact physical size as Calvin Johnson, and he may run a 4.3. So that's going to get people excited about Savion Williams at TCU. They handed him the ball a little bit, didn't get him the ball as much as they probably needed to at TCU, but that's a player that's going to be really fun to pay attention to this weekend. Friday is when he'll talk, so it'll be fun to talk about him or talk to him and see if the Texans have talked to him. Not a Senior Bowl guy, so if they set up an official meeting with him here, kind of gives you a little bit of an idea that they may like him a little bit more. Jeffrey Smith, I got you, Cody. The depth at DT is as deep as Deep Dive Dubai, which is 196 feet deep. Thank you, Jeffrey. Deep Dive Dubai deep.
Your listeners are kind of
What are you saying about the people that watch?
nerdy. What the hell is that?
They're nerdy.
That's nerdy.
You're nerdy. You went to Northwestern, buddy. Nerd school. They're not good at sports.
Whoa.
They're not ever.
We were in the
Are there-
Big Ten championship
are there-
game back-to-back
Are there?
years,
That was like 7 decades ago, man.
7 years ago.
Are there any Northwestern players even at the combine? No.
We turn out tackles like no one's business. Our tackle depth is deeper.
Hey, why don't you go tackle some makeup wipes, bud?
Rashawn Slater. Oh. Rashawn Slater.
D1J has a super chat, so I got to get to him. He takes priority over you, Will. I'm sorry I didn't get to this faster, D1J. Will Conkle from Fox 26 being very rude. Cam Scatterbo in the second or third. I am interested to hear NFL people or draft people really kind of dive in on Scatterbo, because the tape prior to this year, like the performance stuff, was not super impressive. And then he turned into a supernova that drug Arizona State to where they went this season. Like, he was the driving force behind that offense. And it's hard to ignore how physical he is and how he could be a guy that helps you in a variety of ways, even if he's not initially your starting running back. Catches the ball really well out of the backfield. I don't know that he's going to end up as a second or third round guy. He feels like top of day 3 to me, but we'll see how that kind of shakes out a little bit more. You having more computer problems over there?
Yeah, I can't close the damn app out. Hey, dude. Scatterbu's a receiving stud, though. Like, that's the kicker with him.
Kunkel likes the pass catching
He's so
ability of
good
Cam
out of the
Scatterbo.
backfield. Yeah.
He's really good. I mean, the Texas game, I mean, he was incredible.
Yeah, he's damn near like a slot receiver too. He has that ability to kind of do that super back.
Yeah, just like to move him all
Put him
around.
in position to get the ball.
Yeah. Rodney knows. He sees Jackson Hawes. He knows Jackson Hawes is a beast. He's nasty. He's so mean too. Nasty Ivy League tight end that's not scared to block sounds like a winner. It does sound like a winner. And then he could be our boss when he's done playing football because he went to an Ivy League school, a real smart guy school, not like Northwestern.
He went to the Northwestern of the East.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's what they call Yale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Yale's got its own problems to figure out. Home of the best pizza in the world, though.
Mark Maxwell says, would love a free agent guard, Kenneth Grant in the first, that's the Michigan defensive tackle, a wide receiver in the second, and Darius Slayton or DeMarcus Robinson in free agency. That's Darius Slayton, the former Giants wide receiver, or DeMarcus Robinson, the former Rams wide receiver in free agency. Mark's put together like kind of a pretty fun offseason. Go get a right guard in free agency. Kenneth Grant falls to you. He is a game changer at defensive tackle from Michigan. And he's probably not even totally tapped into his potential yet, which is pretty scary because he's already a large, destructive human being. And then you get a wide receiver help in the second. You get another veteran at wide receiver to help out the young guys. I like it. It's a good offseason if they do it this
I will
way.
say there was a Texans coach scouting a player on Michigan on my flight, watching film.
There was a Texans coach watching Michigan film
Yes.
on your flight.
Yes. Could be one of anybody.
It could be anybody.
Anybody.
I mean, it's Michigan. They've got a lot of good guys.
Kinda like
Defensive tackle, though, that'd be
exactly.
pretty fun. Did it look like defense or offense?
I couldn't tell without
Okay.
being like, "What you got?
Yeah,
What you doing?"
How did you not? By the way, the camera can't see, but that's Will Kunkel from Fox 26 helping us out here today. Chewy says, Kunkel, go sit on his lap so we can actually hear you. Don't do that.
Would you let me?
Nope.
Why?
Nope. This isn't Christmas time, and you're not a.
So wait, during Christmas time?
If I dress up like Santa, if I'm dressed like Santa, then lap sitting is allowed.
You remind me of the Phyllis Santa in The Office. Let's see you.
That's mean. That's mean. Oh, Joshua has weighed in on the Cola borer hole. It's a science experiment that tried to drill as deep as possible, got 7 miles down. The Cola borer hole.
How deep did they have to drill in Armageddon to get the nuclear bomb in the asteroid?
Thank you, Will Kunkel, for your contributions today. They're no longer needed. Granted, 25 confirmed by Kunkel because you saw a coach on the plane looking at Michigan tape.
Yep. I knew it. I know people that would source that.
Oh, man. That's going to get aggregated somewhere. Texans love Grant. Per Kunkel.
All right. See you at dinner tonight?
Yes, you will see me at dinner. I just saw Nick Sirianni and Big Dom.
Yeah.
They're behind me. They're going to walk right behind me.
Talking about that right now?
Right now. There they go. It's world champions right there.
That's what we all strive to be.
It's what we all strive to be. It's what we all strive to be. I have no idea if this has been a world championship stream or not. I hope it has. And if not, we'll get another chance later. Here he goes again.
It kind of reminds me of the 4-win teams the Texans used to trot out there.
Okay, well, you don't know anything about football, so go away.
That's what you remind me of.
You don't know anything about anything. This ain't TV. So, sorry I went for more than 4 minutes and you couldn't participate, TV guy. All right. Yeah, there goes the world champions over there. See ya. There goes Big Dom, world champion security guard for the world champion Eagles. All right. World champion stream, that's for you folks to decide. Appreciate everybody for coming through. We'll have SNL 4 o'clock. More from DeMeco Ryans, more of the conversation. Landry Locker weighing in on some of the priorities maybe the DeMeco Ryans has set out there for the Texans. So don't miss out on that. We'll have Houston football conversations for you as well. There's a lot to get to still here through the combine. We've just started. This is day one of stuff. Nick Caserio will talk tomorrow. Defensive lineman will talk tomorrow. This could be so much fun. We're going to have a lot of stuff. We'll have lots of live streams. We'll have recorded content with Houston football. Bing, bang, boom. It's right here. You catch it. It's links in the description down below. Thank you, everybody, for watching live. Got started a little slow. Then we got into it. Really good stuff. Great questions. Keep firing them away over the next couple of days. I'll answer as many as I can during the lives in the comment section after the fact. Thank you for watching. We end the live streams the same way each and every time. It's my hope for you. It's my charge for you as well. This will be a new sticker coming your way when I get back from the NFL Scouting Combine. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. We'll talk Texans again soon, which is 4 p.m. today on SNL. Myself, Landry Locker from the Locker Room. Don't miss out on that. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.